I'm doing number 1 on page 78, 1A. So this problem asks us to explain whether each of the events described represents a shift of the demand curve or a movement along the demand curve. And even though it's only asking you to describe whether it's a movement or a shift, I'm going to actually describe what that looks like graphically, since we discussed that in class. I will use, to answer these questions, I will use the charts on page 77 and 84, where they describe what factors shift demand and supply curves. So we're dealing with demand, and just to remind you that a demand curve let's try this again. A demand curve will look like, so this here on the x-axis is our quantity, this is our price, and demand is going to be downward sloping like this. So this is our first demand curve. And the reason why it's downward sloping is because of our law of demand, which tells us that for a normal good, as prices decrease, demand increases, all else kept equal, ceteris paribus. And so for this demand curve, I could think about the quantity demanded at a certain point on the demand curve. And so this would be the quantity demanded from the first demand curve. And then I could also think about the price at which that quantity is demanded. So this would be the price demanded for that on that first demand curve there. And so that just simply means that, say this is my demand for coffee, then this, if the cost of coffee is, say, $1.30 a cup, then this is the quantity that I'm going to demand at that price. Remember that any change that's going to begin with a change in price is a movement along the demand curve. So any change that originates with a price, or any change for which the catalyst is a change in price, describes a movement along the demand curve. So for instance, if price increases of coffee to, say, $3.50, so this is my price, my second price for my second demand, then I am going to demand, so at this price, I am going to demand this much coffee. And this represents a decrease. So that if the price of coffee increases, my demand for coffee decreases. And that's in line with our understanding of the law of demand. If the catalyst for change is anything but price, if it's, say, a change in technology, or a shift in tastes, for instance, a change in tastes, then our whole demand curve changes. So for instance, let's say that maybe I'm going from living my daily life to then going to graduate school, in which case I'm sleep deprived and I need more coffee. Then that represents a change in my tastes. And I need more coffee even at this one price. So at this one price of, I think I said it was $1.50 a cup, now that I'm in graduate school, I actually need more than I did before. And so we represent that, I hope I can get this curve because this pen is not the best. We represent that with an actual shift in the demand curve. And so this says that at every price point, you are demanding more. Something has changed that has caused you to demand more. So that is the gist of the difference between a movement along the demand curve and a shift of the demand curve. And we can see all the factors that shift demand by looking on page 77, that table that I went over in class. So let's start again. Okay, and again, when I do these problems, I'm just going to, I know that I'm talking about demand, so I'm going to start with a supply and demand model. And so that's price, that's quantity, this is my demand curve. Okay, and now the problem says a store owner finds that customers are willing to pay more for umbrellas on rainy days. Well, this is representing a shift in tastes. On rainy days, so let's say that the price, this is a price of umbrellas. Okay, so this is the price that corresponds to demand. At this price, consumers on any given day are demanding this quantity. Okay. Then on rainy days, even at this price, they're demanding more. They do not want to get wet. So the catalyst for change here is not a change in the price. It's not that the price went down and they demand more. It's that it's raining and they don't want to get rained on. So even at the same price, they shift over and they are demanding more. So this represents a shift in our demand curve. We see that quantity demanded moved to the right, even though the price did not change at all. So A would be a shift, and it's due to a change in tastes. And in the next video I will move on to B.